Welcome back to What's Your Story? And in this episode, my grandson Sam is going to be one of the guest narrators. I hope you enjoy I've Got a Beef with You. Today's story is set on what used to be called the Lazy Y Ranch, just south of Lander, Wyoming, and just a little north of South Pass, Wyoming. My first trip to visit this ranch, whose owner was a friend of the man who sponsored me in my high school alpine ski racing days, was in the summer of 1971. Two memorable events on this trip was the breakfast I had in a boxcar restaurant just a little south of Laurel, Illinois, and the gas wars in Cheyenne, Wyoming during that summer where we got gas at 17 cents a gallon. I had ordered scrambled eggs and bacon with a large, tall glass of orange juice. The eggs came with a side order of fries, and the bacon came on a platter, not a plate, a platter. And the orange juice was at least a 12-ounce glass. And all I can remember is that the price really was 80 cents for that whole entire thing. So I did a little research on Google AI and I found out that during 1971, the average breakfast was $1.35. Eggs cost 45 cents a dozen. Bacon was 69 cents a pound. Home fries were about 10 cents a serving. And orange juice for a tall glass, 15 cents a glass. Now, those were quite the days. In 1971, again, as I said, in Cheyenne, it was much like the US all over, and it was transitioning out of those gas wars of the 60s and 70s, where competitive local gas stations dropped prices as low as 12 to 30 cents per gallon to win people's business. The widespread gas shortages and lines did not hit the U.S. until the 1973 OPEC embargo. That's another story in itself, as many remember the opposite day filling up based on your even or odd license plate number. And the average gas was about 25 cents a gallon. And in about 2 months, it raised to 80 cents. That's three plus times. And I was making about $400 a month as a third class petty officer in the Navy. That's like $4,800 a year. Imagine that.
The E. Lazy Y ranch was settled by an apple farmer Ed Young. Today, the ranch is the Red Canyon Ranch Nature Conservancy. The original setting of the Ed Young Orchard near Lander, it had more than 3,000 producing trees near its peak in 1898. Ed Young, often called the Johnny Appleseed of Wyoming, was an English pioneer who established Wyoming's first documented commercial apple orchard in the 1870s. His
Hmm.
pioneering work in the Red Canyon near Lander transformed the region into a thriving archaeological hub known as the Apple City.
That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Imagine that.
Oh, wait. Hey, did you hear that? Hmm,
Hmm.
I don't know.
Sounds like somebody eating an apple to me.
I feel like I heard a cow's moo in the far distance. Who knows?
According to Nan Slingerland, wife of Henry Slingerland, who owned the ranch all the times that I had visited, Young's Orchard, which is just a few steps from the Slingerland's door, is one of the most important orchards in Lander and Wyoming history. I remember that orchard very well. His orchard put Lander on the map. The Little Poposia River is part of the Poposia Wind River watershed in Wyoming. It is a Crow Indian nation name meaning head of the waters. The mountain men of the early beaver trapping days of the 1800s pronounced the river the Popo Aggie. And this river runs parallel to the Little Bear Creek of today's story and runs right past the main ranch house. The Little Poposia has some of the larger trout species like cutthroat and rainbow, but I wanted to fish the Little Bear Creek because I was told the popular brook trout species were in those waters. And I did some research on the name of Little Bear Creek associated with the Cherry Creek Canyon, but I could find no association, so I can only assume it was a local name given to that creek that I fished. The ranch owner's son and I were dropped off at the height of the ground about 5.5 miles upstream, and our goal was to fish back to Red Canyon Road near the main ranch house. And that we did, but not without the climax of this story.
One has to realize that the ranch was a cattle ranch back in the 1970s with about 1,200 head of cattle. Wow. On this particular day, many of the cattle, cows, and calves were ranging in that area. My papa was 15 years old on this trip with very little knowledge of cattle and their habits. At the age, he was quite fearless when it came to exploring the creeks and backwoods of the Adirondack Mountains of New York. What could be any different? Well, rattlesnakes, large game like moose and elk, and occasional roaming cattle, to name a few. To this day, he was to learn about one of these roaming creatures.
Minding my own business, I would fish from hole to hole in the shady parts of the creek. About 1 mile into the trip, just before the canyon narrows and the river starts a bit of rough water fishing, I was very focused on fishing this one shady spot in the creek where I had just caught a wonderful, beautiful brookie.
Ooh, nice job.
All of a sudden, a noise, very similar to an oncoming train with the ground shaking slightly. I turned sharply around, and a very large cow was stampeding right at me, and it let out a very loud moo!
Oh, come on.
And I responded with a very frightened and startled yell, and thankfully, cow, and now visible calf, about 4 feet from me, whirled and ran away in the other direction.
So, what's your story? Please don't judge my mood. That was so bad, but also so funny. Thank you for watching this. Bye.